It's been over 2 years and about 20 pounds since the last episode of The Smoking Hot Nerds, and boy, have things changed. The last episode was about the Book of Boba Fett season and Now We Know series finale. Back then, in 2022, it was presumed that the Book of Boba Fett was simply a failure thanks to the impressively high standards set by the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. Ah, the good old days where Star Wars felt like Star Wars. Let's talk just a bit about how far away this galaxy has gotten in a mere 2 years and what could possibly save it. Welcome to the Smoking Hot Nerds. We of course finally got the return of 2 beloved characters and the men who played them in the 2000s with Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was certainly cool to see Ewan and Hayden take up their robes again and give us that first dose of live-action Anakin and Obi-Wan since 2005. But the show was somewhat underwhelming, with goofy plot points like slow children running from train killers or casual conversations with stormtroopers. The casting and unnecessary cameos have been complained about ad nauseum by every other nerdy channel, so I'll spare you my feelings. Overall, though, it did feel like Star Wars and gave us a fun fight between Vader and Obi-Wan, but the ending to that story felt so freaking strange. My problem with it was that at the end of the fight, the resolution was an emotional one. It made no sense. Obi-Wan had previously seen Vader at his worst, force choking innocent civilians and whatnot. He knew what it would mean to the galaxy to have Vader be a player in it, and the correct character thing to do would have been to end him then and there. In my alternate ending, just as Obi-Wan is about to end the reign of Vader, a number of starfighters and a Star Destroyer land in atmosphere and fire on Obi-Wan, forcing him to flee before finishing the job, allowing Vader to be rescued, to live and destroy planets on another day. But instead of that dramatic ending, we got a boo-hoo Obi-Wan crying about losing his friend in a horribly anticlimactic finish to one of the better lightsaber duels in Star Wars. Then Andor came around. Now, Andor was my favorite live-action series of the last 2 years for a number of reasons. I think Rogue One is the 4th best Star Wars film, so it was fun to revisit the world of a just-before-the-Death Star galaxy. It was perfectly cast, which is saying something considering how garbage nearly everything has been cast since The Phantom Menace. Seeing the rebellion in its baby stages while still feeling the pre-Empire vibes at the time made for a complex and pleasing Star Wars world. I'd say my only complaint, and it's a big one, was that there was an unnecessary need in the script to give Cassian a background and an origin story. I was really hoping that we'd get dropped right into Cassian's life where he's a fully formed character like Han Solo or Indiana Jones. No backstory needed. Let's just see his badassery right out of the gate, and that would have been in line with the character in Rogue One, in which he's a capable rebel who's been in the fight since he was a kid. Instead, we got a wimpy, scared ne'er-do-well looking for his sister and accidenting his way into the rebellion, rather than a cool, calculated, dedicated, and impressive leader in the rebellion. Ahsoka came next and was certainly a strong effort. It looked and sounded great, and while Rosario got a little heat for being a bit cold in character, I think her acting style and characterization worked nicely for Ahsoka's arc. Live-action clone troopers, a de-aged Anakin, and a not Sith character brought depth and intrigue to the show. I guess my biggest issue with the show was everything about the story. It was based in stories already told with the Clone Wars and Rebels. And while it was fun to have a real-life Sabine and Hera, much of the show's plot points and member berries required you to know a lot about Rebels. The mural at the beginning was a cheesy way to say "member this," and while Thrawn was a great character and well acted by Lars Mikkelsen, who also does the voice for the cartoons, he's one that I would have loved to see look exactly as he does in the animated series, which is exactly how I felt about the failure in creating an excellent live-action Grand Inquisitor. Overall, it was a big pile of 2010s nostalgia, which is totally fine, and it was nice to get some clarity on the Ezra Bridger story, but overall it was less impressive than I hoped. Seasons 2 and 3 of The Bad Batch are probably the best and most shiny of all the new Star Wars. Sometimes it feels like beyond the original trilogy and Mando, Star Wars thrives in an animated form far more than live action. Star Wars Visions was incredibly unique, Rebels was great, and the Clone Wars, particularly the final season, was a bit of a masterpiece. Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire feel appropriately suited to be follow-ups to the Clone Wars, but Bad Batch was a surprisingly emotional run throughout the entire series, proving that great story and great characters you love can come from any medium. And then, of course, came The Acolyte. Plenty of time has been spent online discussing this absolute festering turd of a series, so I won't cover what's already been covered ad nauseum, except to say that this is exactly what happens when you put story last. There was absolutely no effort put into creating a great Star Wars story, and all the effort was put into everything else. And it showed. Plus, the Rashomon style of telling the story from different perspectives, in my opinion, was undoubtedly a way to minimize creativity and get maximum episodes with minimum effort. It was a lazy, incredibly badly acted romp from start to finish by people who are better suited to be marketing pawns in a progressive corporate environment and not creating art within an already established and beloved universe. But did it kill Star Wars? Because Star Wars is already dead. Star Wars died in 1999 when Obi-Wan's backstory was retconned in the first 30 seconds after the opening crawl of The Phantom Menace, when we see him in training as a Padawan with a new character, the now beloved Qui-Gon Jinn, rather than with Yoda.
The Jedi Master who instructed me.
Quote unquote. We obviously already know why this character was introduced and why the line from Empire could still work, but that was the first in a now decades-long retconning of the entire Star Wars universe. I'll probably do an episode just on this topic, but for now let me say that if Disney/Lucasfilm get their act together with future projects like more Mando, Andor, and Ahsoka, and new series like Skeleton Crew, The Acolyte will be a distant memory, much like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And it's not a secret that the so-called message got a little out of hand when it comes to post-prequel Star Wars, and that the bubble burst with The Acolyte. But I'm hopeful that guys like Filoni and Favreau can right the ship that they effectively created and built with Clone Wars and with The Mandalorian. Star Wars used to feel innocent and aspirational. It used to be cinematic and movie-making at its best for the times. And I think it can return to form, and at the very least get back to a place where the biggest complaint is an insane spin or the slowest easy riders in the galaxy. 2022 up until now was an interesting 2 years of Star Wars, and I'll hold out hope that the next 2 years are a vast improvement. And whether it is or isn't, I'll certainly offer my 2 cents. And maybe one of these days, Disney will listen.